Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into something pretty stunning that's unfolding right now. Russia has made a direct military threat against Israel. Now, this is a huge deal, not just because of the threat itself, but because it has echoes of a major Cold War crisis and could be a sign that the global balance of power is shifting right under our feet. All right, let's just jump right in with the claim that's at the center of all of this. This quote comes directly from Russian state officials. And let's be clear, this is not just some vague diplomatic chatter. We're talking about a specific public threat against named locations in one of the most tense regions on the planet. So you gotta ask, right? How on earth did we get here? What could possibly push Russia to make such an incredibly risky move against a country like Israel? Well, the answer, believe it or not, is tied to a completely different war happening thousands of miles away.
Okay, so first things first, let's really break down the threat itself. It's super important to understand exactly who's saying this, what they're saying they'll target, and maybe, most intriguingly, why they're calling this a historic opportunity. The level of detail here is what's really wild. This isn't just posturing. The threat is coming straight from Russia's Ministry of Defense. It's been publicly backed by a major figure, former President Dmitry Medvedev. And get this, they've named specific manufacturing sites in Haifa and Or Yehuda. They've even gone so far as to warn civilians to get out of the area, which, wow, that suggests this is way more than just tough talk. So the big question is why? Why is Russia making this unprecedented move now? Well, the official justification they're giving has everything to do with the war in Ukraine. It's all about what they claim their forces have been finding on the battlefield. And this really gets to the absolute heart of the matter. You have two completely opposite stories. On one side, you have Israel's long-held position, hey, our help to Ukraine is purely humanitarian, things like helmets. But then on the other side, you have Russia's bombshell allegation. We found Israeli-made military parts inside Ukrainian drones that have been attacking us. But it doesn't even stop there. Moscow didn't just make a general claim. They actually took it a step further and publicly named the specific Israeli company that they say is making these drone parts. Now, that is a massive escalation because it puts a private company and its employees right in the middle of a geopolitical showdown. So with these incredibly direct and public accusations on the table, what has Israel's government had to say about it? So far, absolutely nothing. Just silence. And in a situation like this, that official silence is becoming a pretty significant part of the story itself. Now, to really understand just how heavy this threat from Russia feels to people who study this stuff, we actually have to jump in a time machine. We've got to go back nearly 70 years to a moment that literally changed the world map. Yeah, we're talking about the 1956 Suez Crisis. And in the middle of it, the Soviet Union did something that absolutely shocked the world. Their leader, Bulganin, issued a direct ultimatum threatening to fire nuclear missiles at London and Paris if they didn't call off their invasion of Egypt. It was a terrifying, high-stakes gamble. And this timeline just shows you how shockingly effective it was. Look at the dates. The invasion begins in late October. On November 5th, boom, the Soviets dropped their ultimatum. And by November 6th, literally the next day, Britain and France agreed to a ceasefire. The game was over. And after that, the old colonial powers were done, and the world was dominated by two superpowers, the US and the USSR. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. 24 hours? That's how quickly a direct, believable threat from a superpower ended a war and changed history. This is the heavy historical context that's hanging over everything we're talking about right now. But look, this whole thing isn't happening in a vacuum. This Russian threat is landing at a moment when Israel is already facing this incredible mounting pressure on the diplomatic front from, well, pretty much all sides. And this chart really just lays it out. You've got Hungary, which has been a key ally for Israel and the EU, suddenly changing its tune. You've got Lebanon's president refusing to even talk with Netanyahu. And then, on top of all of that, Russia throws this direct military threat into the mix. It's like a diplomatic squeeze play from multiple directions at once. And that move by Hungary, that one really, really stings for Israel. Hungary's Prime Minister Orbán has been one of Netanyahu's closest allies in Europe, often using his power to shield Israel. The source material even points out he was seen as a kind of political mentor to Netanyahu, so losing that reliable support is a huge strategic blow.
And then there's Lebanon, which is fascinating. Their current leadership is basically looking back at history, at things like that 1983 agreement with Israel that was signed under intense pressure and then fell apart in less than a year, and they're saying, nope, we're not falling into that kind of diplomatic trap again. So by refusing to talk now, they believe they're playing a smarter, longer game.
All right, so let's pull all these pieces together. We have a direct military threat, we have these powerful echoes of a world-changing moment in history, and it's all happening against a backdrop of growing diplomatic isolation. So what's the big picture here? What does this all add up to?
Well, according to the analysis we're looking at, this is essentially a huge geopolitical chess move. Russia seems to view Israel as America's backyard, a place where it can apply pressure to get back at the U.S. for all the pressure it's feeling from the West over Ukraine. It's global tit for tat.
And the bigger worry here is that this might just be the beginning. The concern is that Russia's very bold move could embolden other countries, like North Korea or maybe even China, to take a much more confrontational stance as well. You could see a new bloc forming in opposition to the West.
And that brings us to the final and most critical question. Is this just another international crisis that will eventually blow over? Or are we watching something much bigger unfold in real time? Could this Russian ultimatum, just like that Soviet one back in 1956, be a tipping point, a moment that fundamentally redraws the map of global power for years to come? That is the billion-dollar question.